Well, Manfred, thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be able to welcome you to Crete. As you probably know, I am from Crete. And when we discussed with Vangelis, who is also from Crete, where we should have the study days, there was only one choice, Crete, of course. So we're glad that you are here. And I'm sure that you will have a productive 2.5 days, discussion days, but also an opportunity to explore the beauty of the island, maybe jump into the sea, and certainly have a chance to maybe visit the mainland and some of the stunning archaeological sites that are very close to the hotel where we are hosting this event. Manfred, thank you for inviting me. I thought I'd keep my remarks relatively brief so that we can also have an opportunity to answer some of the questions that you may have. But I must tell you that you have shown remarkable resilience in terms of insisting to come to Crete in spite of the many difficulties, an earthquake, another sort of cycle of the COVID pandemic. But speaking of resilience, I would just like to share with you a few thoughts on political resilience and what we have been able to achieve in Greece over these past 3 years, because I think that what we have been able to do in Greece may be relevant within the broader context, the broader discussion that we're having at the level of our European political family. As you probably remember, we were elected to power in July 2019 after experimenting with the populism of the left for 4 years. And we came to power with a very clear mandate. In the meantime, of course, we had to deal, as many other European countries, with all sorts of crises. In our case, it was not just COVID and the current spike in inflation. We also had to deal with a migration crisis, Turkey instrumentalizing refugees and migrants starting in March 2020, and of course also with being a force of stability in a very unstable geopolitical neighborhood. But in spite of us spending a lot of time dealing with crises which were not of our own making, we have been successful in implementing our electoral agenda. And our number one focus when we came into power was to make sure that we change the fabric of the Greek economy, that we deliver growth, jobs, and better income to all Greeks. And indeed, I took note of what you said, Manfred, that Greece is no longer the black sheep of the European family. And it does give us satisfaction when we read in the foreign press interesting stories about how Greece is currently buckling the trend and is doing particularly well at a time when the global economy is currently being plunged into a recession. There was a very interesting and flattering article yesterday in the Financial Times mentioning 7 countries that are currently performing extremely well in terms of their economic performance. One of them was Greece, and of course this gives us satisfaction that we have been able to deliver when it comes to our fundamental promise, which was to put Greece on a high growth trajectory, bring down unemployment, attract foreign direct investment, and make sure that the Greek economy becomes again as competitive as it can possibly be. If you look at our growth numbers, we will exceed a growth of 5% this year. We could reach close to 6%, and we're estimating a growth in excess of 2% for next year at a time when many European countries may be faced with a recession. We've been able to bring down unemployment by more than 5 percentage points. We had a record year in terms of attracting foreign direct investment, and we've been able to diversify the Greek economy beyond our traditional pillars, tourism, agriculture, to attract significant investment in renewables, but also in new areas such as technology. All the American technology companies have invested in Greece, and Greece is becoming very rapidly a technology hub for the entire region. At the same time, we focused a lot on issues which are very close to the heart of our political family, related to security and defense. After 10 years of underinvestment in our defense forces, we've launched a program of making sure we add the necessary capacities to our defense forces, while at the same time also dealing with a very unpredictable neighbor. We focused a lot on making sure that we put in place a different policy regarding migration. We can actually protect our borders with respect to fundamental rights. We've been able to bring down migration flows by more than 80% in the Aegean. We've essentially killed the smugglers' networks that profited from human trafficking from the Aegean coast of Turkey to our islands. And we've also called out Turkey in terms of its practices of instrumentalizing migrants and refugees for its own geopolitical purposes. And at the same time, we've also implemented a series of reforms in terms of making sure we upgrade the technological capacity of the state. You can now interact with the state digitally for most of your day-to-day affairs. We've invested a lot in education, we've invested a lot in health, and we're really focused on making sure that the new growth that we envision brings down inequalities and promotes social fairness. So we're really talking about an inclusive growth, which of course makes no compromises when it comes to protecting our environment. Our green agenda has been one of the most proactive in Europe, and we intend to keep it that way for the foreseeable future. So we are really entering the electoral cycle, I believe, from a position of strength. We're still ahead in the polls by anywhere between 8 and 10 percentage points. And I think when the time will come in the spring of 2023 to make our case to the Greek people, I think we have a reasonable chance of making the case that we kept our electoral promises, that Greece is now in a much better position than it was when we took over in 2019. And I'm confident that the Greek people will give us a second mandate to complete the job that we have started. Few words on the challenges ahead. As all European heads of state and government, we're preoccupied, dear Manfred, with one question, and that one question is the rising cost of living, inflation, which has been the product of rising costs of energy as a result of the instrumentalization of gas by Russia. We have all put in place aggressive support programs to support businesses and households with the rising cost of energy. But I want to make the case that this is not going to be enough. I'm afraid that Europe has not been able, as of yet, to come up with a concrete response when it comes to the problem of energy. Greece has been actively lobbying with many other European countries for a cap on the price of gas, which will include both LNG coming into Europe, but also the piped gas from Russia into Europe, and has been gaining additional support by other European countries. We're not quite there yet in terms of convincing the Commission that this is a path we need to pursue. But unless we get this right, unless we add to the domestic firepower that our budgets can provide, the European firepower of a coordinated response, I am afraid that we're in for a very difficult winter, and that social cohesion will actually begin to be challenged. If that is the case, then we will give more opportunities for populists to arise ahead of the electoral cycle of 2024, and we will make our job of convincing our electorates that we are credible forces for change that much more difficult. So when you think and when you discuss tomorrow and the day after tomorrow about European responses to the question of inflation, please add into your discussion ideas and thoughts about how we can coordinate our European response when it comes to tackling the issues related to the cost of energy, because this is the #1 problem that we will be facing over the next winter. Let me conclude before I take any questions that you may have with the commitment of Nea Dimokratia, dear Manfred, to support the EPP in light of the electoral cycle of 2024. We have proven in Greece that you can deliver credible and inclusive growth while being patriotically sensitive when it comes to issues of foreign policy, defense, and migration, and thus widen our electoral appeal at the expense of populists, both from the right and from the left. If these lessons are in any way helpful for our overall European campaign, I'm always ready to share them with you. You can count on our support, and we will make sure that Nea Dimokratia leads the effort in order to strengthen, even further strengthen, the position of the EPP within European politics. And before then, I'm sure that the EPP will stand by us as we fight for a second term in the elections that will take place in Greece in 2023. Again, thank you very much for your attention. Ready to take any questions that you may have.